This is the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. Here's Rick Ucchino and SP3 on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Oh, it is Monday morning, and that means your boys are back. SP3, did we do an entire show last week? I feel like I haven't talked to you in like 8 months at this point. Like, last week was insane with internet issues and scheduling issues. It's nice to get this week off on the right foot. 7 a.m. Monday morning, we are here, and we are talking about, I don't know, what could possibly be going on in the world of professional wrestling that is of any kind of consequence whatsoever. I don't know, like maybe some more Wall Street Journal reports that dropped on Friday, another news bomb, and I mean a news bomb, and it is getting worse and worse by the day. If you are Vincent Kennedy McMahon, although he sure as hell ain't acting like it, according to reports. We will dive into all of that. Everybody is losing their minds over the latest drama or latest developments surrounding Sasha Banks and Naomi. But should they be? We'll dive into that. And how about some happy news? Pat McAfee sticking around, living his best life, dancing on tables and playing golf with Aaron Rodgers, for crying out loud. That man is my hero. He is my absolute hero. He is living the life that I want to live, and I could not be happier for him. Plus, we'll talk about Liv Morgan, Lacey Evans, the Street Profits, and yes, Mr. Money in the Bank himself, Austin Theory. But SP3, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, we didn't do a show at all last week. Our usual day to do the first show of the week. I went to Revolution Pro, got to see Will Ospreay murder a 60-year-old wrestler.
Nice.
I got to see Shiro Amino selling Chris Jericho's fireball to the face in person. Almost got killed by a couple of tope suicidas because there wasn't any guardrail at the show. So that was fun, pulling my wife out of the way of tope suicidas. Always a good time. Always a good
husband
date.
of the year right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Laying his body on the line.
Then our usual Tuesday show, you got called into work. You're a hardworking man at the radio station. Then our Wednesday, our post Dynamite show, I couldn't make it because it's like 3 a.m. here. So some weeks you gotta understand, I'm gonna want to just go to sleep after an episode of Dynamite.
And all this is going on, by the way, as my internet was frequently going. If it wasn't for scheduling issues, I physically couldn't do the show. There was a point where I had no internet for 2 days. So I'm sitting here like a savage, just watching, Raw and all those other shows on my phone off of my off my cell phone connection that is paid for by my shoot job. So, it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. But we are here. We are back. No internet issues, no scheduling issues. So much to dive into. First things first, got to thank our friends over at Bet Online, the continued number one source for all of your betting needs and sports information. Get all the latest odds, news, developments, including this year's Major League Baseball games that are still going on for everybody except the Cincinnati Reds. Latest fighting news, even next season's early NFL futures. I don't know. Training camp's only 2 weeks away. We got a big fantasy football league that I'm going to win this year, SP3. Head on over to the website, use your mobile device, sign up today, receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Bleav to get that bonus that is BLEAV and get into the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. We need to contact Bet Online because I think there needs to be a lot of bets and money being laid down on this wrestling media fantasy football league that we got going on. We got big doings going on behind the scenes here, including Commissioner Dutch Mantel rolling in to take care of this league here and lay down the law.
I should be called by like WWE and sports leagues all around the world. I put a lot of this together. I've recruited you a part of the league, Dutch a part of the league. We got Steve from Going In Raw part of the league. Like, we got some of the biggest names in wrestling media: Sean Ross Sapp, Jeremy Lambert from Fightful, Rod Wilkins Williams from Fightful, Jarrett Bailey, who does NFL on like CBS and all this other stuff. Like, we have some of the biggest names in wrestling media. Allie, Queen of the Ring, a part of our wrestling media football fantasy football league. How quickly we put it all together is amazing to me. It shows the ingenuity.
Yeah, and not only that, but everybody's taking this really seriously, because I've put together fantasy leagues before. You don't get everybody joining the league right away like that. Everybody joined in, hopped in on their spots, and was ready to go, and they're ready to throw some money down. So we need to contact Bet Online and get some bets placed on this thing. Jeremy should be the odds-on favorite, considering he, covers the NFL on a semi-regular basis. So you'd think he'd be in the know on this stuff. So maybe.
Well, Jarrett Bailey, all the credit to him, but he is also, I think, 22 years old. He didn't know what AIM was, and he frequently undermines and underrates the Tennessee Titans. Just ask Top Guy JJ of True Hill Heat about that, because he still brags about how he was right about the Titans making the playoffs last year, and Jarrett wasn't.
Yeah, they made the playoffs. We're the number one seed. Didn't go anywhere thanks to my Cincinnati Bengals. So, it is what it is. But we ain't here to talk about football. We're not here to talk about fantasy. I've actually been kind of stalling on purpose, because this is not a story that I want to talk about or, frankly, enjoy talking about. And I don't know who would, to be honest with you. But another Friday news dump from the Wall Street Journal, as they dropped another bombshell report, as if it wasn't bad enough from the first report about Vince paying a former, legal advisor or counsel, legal counsel member, part of the WWE team there, $3 million in hush money to keep their alleged affair hush hush. Now there are reports that he has paid out $12 million to 4 other women. And to me, this is the big one: $7.5 million to a former talent, a wrestler, somebody who he was in charge of creatively, paid out $7 million after they were coerced, demoted, and ultimately fired in 2005 for not continuing with sexual encounters with the chairman himself. And that right there, like, as the rest of this ain't bad enough, this right here to me screams Vince McMahon. There is no way that Vince McMahon should still be in charge of WWE Creative. That right there is the biggest. That's not a smoking gun. That is a pipe bomb that went off in the middle of Fountain Square. All right. That is what that is. There is no way, in my opinion, and I would say this about anybody. I would say this for the head of an NFL coach, right? Like, if he got involved with one of his players and then benched him for not continuing, I would say the same thing there. I will say the same thing here. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter the business. Doesn't matter the industry. When you have a manager who uses their influence, uses their power to coerce somebody into doing something, and when the employee finally says no, that employee is then demoted and fired. That person, that manager, should not have a job anymore. Vince McMahon should not be the head of creative, at least temporarily, while these investigations are going on. There's no way that he should be able to continue. But then again, he's the boss. Stephanie McMahon's the CEO. But I think it's pretty damn clear Vince still runs the ship, and we know what's more important to him. He'll step down as CEO, but according to reports, Fightful Select and everything like that, business as usual. Friday Night SmackDown this week. Vince McMahon just don't care. At least he didn't go out on television this week. At least he didn't do that.
I said this on Trio, and I'll say it here. I wouldn't hold my breath too soon or congratulate him for not being on TV, because the news dropped on Friday. The last time this happened, the news dropped on Wednesday, and he had 2 days to think about. Then he said, let me show up on SmackDown. So if he doesn't show up on Raw, then we can be like, at least he didn't show up on Raw. Let's not talk about the day of. The day of, of course, he's going to be like, let me just worry about creative. I don't need to go out there and tell him, fuck him yet. But maybe we might get that on Monday Night Raw. And it's very rare that I say any type of profanity, but this whole story and the news of how he was very nonchalant about it, and the F when he went backstage after his first appearance on SmackDown, and then hearing all of this is basically what we all talked about when the first allegations came out. We said that this is the first of many. All that first one with the former paralegal did was open up the floodgates, and now it is pouring out a total of $12 million to 4 different women. Like, this is not good. This is not a good image for the WWE. And like I said, when Stephanie McMahon was made interim CEO and chairwoman, this was a process based on what Vince said in his quote with that press release from the WWE board of directors. I felt like this was a move to make the transition smooth. And I think that the next announcement that we're going to get from the board of directors isn't about any findings of the investigation. It might be, before anything, that Stephanie McMahon is now the permanent CEO and chairwoman, and maybe, possibly, if they're thinking in their right mind and just taking the evidence at face value, the move now is to at least give Vince a administrative leave of absence, like you did with John Laurinaitis. He needs an administrative leave of absence from his role as head of creative. And I'm not saying that's honestly a good thing. I know everybody's like, oh, that's the greatest thing ever for Vince to be removed from creative. I'm sorry. The other option, it's not going to be Triple H like you all wish it will. It's not going to be Paul Heyman like you all hope it was. It's going to be the biggest puppet, the biggest yes man in Vince McMahon lore, Bruce Pritchard. He is already the executive director of creative, and he is not an improvement on Vince McMahon being the head of creative. Unfortunately, that's what it's going to be, in my opinion.
There's a lot of questions that surround a move like that. If Vince ultimately does take a leave of absence, which again, he should, slam dunk, no doubt in my mind, he should have been out Friday. The hours after this was dropped, he should have been out, should have been forced to take a leave of absence. But again, I don't know how much power he still has. Obviously a lot if he's still sitting in that chair and running the show. But if he does take a leave of absence, it's not going to be Vince that's going to be promoting the head of, WWE Creative at that point, or executive producers, this, that, and the other thing. I Bleav that would fall on the board and fall on Stephanie. Right?
But I'm just telling y'all, the board of directors made Bruce Pritchard, who has publicly gone on record and said that he doesn't like dealing with talent relations. They made him the head of talent relations. That's what they're going to do. He's already the executive director of creative. The only step up, it's like being the supervisor at work. If the manager gets fired, you either work from the outside or you promote the guy within. And Stephanie McMahon was on a leave of absence. So they could have promoted anyone who was within WWE, but they went with the person who has been positioned for that role of interim CEO and chairwoman. The person who was in position to take over head of creative is Bruce Pritchard. I'm letting y'all know. I hope I'm not like this big, oh man, oh, I don't want to hear that. Oh wow, I didn't realize that. No, it's common sense. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Look, more than likely. But again, if Vince McMahon is 100% out of the picture, on a leave of absence, not involved with WWE at present time, I'm just saying there is at least a chance they might go in another direction.
They won't.
At least a chance. But you're right. They probably won't. But here's the thing.
The chance is like 5%. And I think I'm being generous.
But here's the thing. It's probably a 0% chance, because that would require Vince McMahon to take a leave of absence.
This is the other thing that I've been saying everywhere, is that none of this should shock anybody. If you know the history of Vince McMahon, none of this should shock you. The thing that should shock anyone and everyone is if Vince actually does a leave of absence. If this is the thing that actually removes Vince McMahon from power in WWE, because nothing we've seen in our lifetime, in our parents' lifetime, says that Vince McMahon is going to leave unless it's under his own, he has an epiphany and realizes, maybe I should take some time off.
No, the only way he's leaving is in a pine box or handcuffs. Like, seriously, like, that's the only way that he is leaving, is he's going to have to be forced out of there. And that's the question, is how does this happen? And frankly, it's got to be mounting pressure, right? And I'm not talking about from the board. I'm talking about from networks. I'm talking about from sponsors. Those are the people that are going to have to voice concerns. And I don't know if they have any, but it's not a good look. Everything that's going down with Vince right now, it's not a good look for WWE, but it's also not a good look for Fox. It's not a good look for NBC Universal. It's not a good look for Peacock. It's not a good look for anybody who puts their money into WWE's product. It's not a good look. It's all going to be how much power and influence those people have collectively to force Vince McMahon to either take a leave of absence on his own or force some, again, the inner workings of WWE. It all runs through Vince McMahon. And that's why the promotion of Stephanie to interim CEO was, what did you call it? It's a face move. It's cosmetic. It's a cosmetic move, basically.
Yeah, it's a cosmetic move, and that's what basically her, removing the interim title will be. And that's what I'm saying with another cosmetic move is Vince being taken a leave of absence from head of creative and Bruce Pritchard being the new head of creative. That's just a cosmetic move because Bruce is going to have Vince in his ear regardless.
Yeah.
He's never come out with a great idea on his own. You just listen to something to wrestle with. It always involves Vince in some way. All of his great ideas, it has to go through a filter, and that filter has always been named Vince
McMahon. Yeah. So again, none of this is good from any aspect of this. And guys, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's going to be more that comes out, and that's not me speculating. That is a fact. That is what people have said. More of this is going to come out as they continue to dig deeper and deeper into the past of Vince McMahon. And yeah, I mean, the paper trail's there, obviously. I mean, these aren't allegations to a certain point. This is bad. This money was paid out. So these are more than allegations. There is a large sense of truth to these reports that are coming out. So we'll see where things go and how things progress, and whether or not Vince McMahon decides to say fuck him on Monday and come out there on Monday Night Raw and welcome everybody to the show. We shall see if the chairman decides, or the ex-chairman, I should say, walks down to the ring and drops his big-ass grapefruits in the center of the ring one more again. Let's move on to some happy news, because I think a lot of people, when this news drops, I think it was also on Friday, either Thursday or Friday, when this news dropped.
We're talking about AEW? Oh, no, we're talking about WWE. Oh, sorry. You say good news. I'm sorry.
Well, hey, look. Pat McAfee signing a multi-year extension with WWE is fantastic news. I think he has been a slam dunk hire, and I'll admit, when they first brought him on to be on commentary, I'm like, all right, I have no idea how this is going to work. This could totally backfire. And he has taken to WWE like a duck to water. He is infectious. He is hilarious. He brings a certain amount of energy to SmackDown. If you don't believe me, watch this week's show, because that energy was clearly missing. And that's not a knock on Corey Graves. That's just praise for Pat McAfee, because he brings so much to the table as both a color commentator and as an in-ring performer. Right now, his match with Happy Corbin at SummerSlam, which was made official last week, is one of the more highly anticipated matches for me on this card, because it's something different and we're going to see something cool. Also got two former Indianapolis Colts teammates facing off at WrestleMania. I mean, you want to talk about long-term booking now. That's some long-term booking. One of those dudes actually made the team, Happy Corbin. But this is great news for Pat. This is great news for WWE, and I was really happy and thrilled to see all this, and I hope it continues the way what we've been seeing. Him on commentary every week, and give me 2 or 3 matches a year out of Pat McAfee. I think that's the best way to utilize him.
Yeah, he's been a revelation. Someone that when he first was about to have his matchup with NXT, I was firmly against it. I didn't want to see it. I thought he was annoying as on those kickoff shows for NXT and the pre-shows, and then he debuted. He had his first promo, and he started to win me over. He's just a natural talker, has natural charisma. He showed out, had a fantastic match against Adam Cole in his first ever match, one of the greatest debut matches for a celebrity in a way, because he's an NFL punter. I don't know if you could call them celebrities, but in a way, a celebrity first match. That was fantastic. And then he performed well in War Games. Then he came the SmackDown commentary, and like you said, he's been a breath of fresh air. Like the genuine enthusiasm that he has. He's not the best commentator, but he's the best one in WWE. Like, from a technical standpoint, he's not a very good commentator because he says a lot of things that commentators are not supposed to say. But in just needing that genuineness that has been ripped away from guys like Michael Cole, Corey Graves, Byron Saxton, Pat McAfee is the best because he gives you genuine excitement, and he sounds like a fan of the product, which makes you become a fan of the product listening to him. So that's what WWE needs. This is one of the best acquisitions that WWE's made in a couple of years. The reports from WrestleVote say they know what they have with Pat McAfee, so I'm glad that he's here long term.
Yeah, and look, Michael Cole has said this. He said it on Twitter, and he don't tweet very often, but he has said this a lot of times, that Pat McAfee kind of revitalized his career and kind of re-energized him. And I think you see that POV video that they did of Cole and McAfee when Liv Morgan cashed in Money at the Bank. It gave me goosebumps watching it. Just watching those two get genuinely excited to see Liv Morgan cash in Money in the Bank. And Michael Cole, hell, he dropped her shoot name on TV on that pay-per-view. Like, you could tell he was genuinely happy for Liv, the person, not just the character, cashing in and winning Money in the Bank. It added so much more emotion to that moment. And again, it's all, you can see the excitement in Pat McAfee. He's, every time he sees a move, it's like he's seeing it for the first time. And he just brings that spark to the show. And again, it was missed this weekend. I know he was playing golf with Aaron Rodgers and AJ Hawk and all that stuff, or selling the neck injury, whatever the hell WWE got their signals crossed on that one. But still, great for Pat, great for WWE, enjoying the hell out of it. I did enjoy week one of Liv Morgan's run as SmackDown Women's Champion. I hope we have a lot more, but there's a question there.
It's time to answer the 5 count on the Bleav Podcast Network.
For those of you who are new to the program, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as we continue to inch our way towards monetization. Really appreciate you guys. Picked up like 50 subscribers last month. That was huge. Appreciate you guys for that one. We do got a lot that's going to be coming up here on the channel in the next week or so, including a conversation I'm going to have with Athena. AEW. There's an AEW drop there for you, SP3. Going to be talking to Athena this week. So hopefully she'll get her TBS championship shot sometime very soon. Also going to be talking to Renee Paquette. Pretty much anybody who was on WWE Backstage. I'm going to try and knock them all off sometime this month. Might have a few more lined up for you as well. So again, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot coming down. Going to talk about StarCast 5 with Renee coming up later this week. That might drop next week there, actually. But still, we're talking about Liv Morgan here. Officially moved over to the SmackDown roster, which helps a ton. Right, we talked about that. They needed something. They needed a refreshment. They needed an infuse of new talent and new baby faces. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks, and now all of a sudden, within the last few weeks, we have added Sonya Deville to the roster. Great. Now we've added hot top baby face and Liv Morgan, new champion. Great. We've added Lacey Evans, who could have been a baby face, could have been a heel. We know what she is now. We'll talk about her coming up here in a minute. But they did this great job of presenting Liv Morgan. I thought her promo on Monday came off very genuine. You could see the excitement and the love in her face. The crowd was eating it up. Loved that. We come out on Friday Night SmackDown, and basically kind of a rinse and repeat, but just with Michael Cole in the ring this time. However, then we get Natty involved, and between Michael Cole and Natty, there were a lot of, this is great. You've earned this. You have worked so hard for this. But if it wasn't for Natalya, you wouldn't have won this. But if it wasn't for the fact that Ronda Rousey was hurt, you wouldn't be champion right now. But if it wasn't for the fact that you had the Money in the Bank briefcase, you wouldn't be the SmackDown Women's. A lot of buts. They decided to take Liv Morgan's win and spray paint a giant asterisk next to this. And I'm sitting here going, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Who gives a flying hell about any of that? That's the whole entire point of Money in the Bank. It has been well established, unless you are John Cena or Damian Sandow, right? Like, or RVD, you take the absolute opportune moment whenever it is. And you had a wounded, hobbling Ronda Rousey. I don't care if it's babyface on babyface. Who gives a shit? Let's also just ignore the fact that Liv Morgan was in a ladder match 2 hours prior to that cash in. Let's just focus on the fact that Ronda Rousey got a knee bar and a sharpshooter. All right, let's just focus on that. And I'm sitting here, I'm going, why are we doing this? And I can't help but to think back to last year's Money in the Bank winner, which was Nikki A.S.H., who won the briefcase. Crowd was happy. She cashes in the next night on Raw. And then all of a sudden, the entire story of her whole 6-week run, 6-week run, whatever it was, does she deserve it? Is she good enough to be the Raw Women's Champion? And by the way, she had some of the best matches in her career during that 6-month stretch. Bangers with Charlotte Flair, a lot of them. And then it comes to SummerSlam. The culmination of that story should have been, yes, Nikki A.S.H. is good enough. She beat Charlotte Flair to retain the Raw Women's Championship. What happened? Charlotte Flair won the Raw Women's Championship. And the culmination of the story was, no, Nikki's not good enough. And then Nikki's position on the card slowly went down, and now she's chasing the 24/7 championship. All it took was one episode of SmackDown where they kept throwing that but at me. I'm legit worried here now that this match with Ronda Rousey has been made official with Liv Morgan. This should be a long title run for Liv Morgan. At least a few months, at least a few defenses. SP3, number 1 here on the 5 count. Should Liv Morgan fans be worried ahead of her match with Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam that she might be getting the Nikki A.S.H. treatment here?
Be worried.
Be very worried.
Ronda Rousey gifted Liv Morgan the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Literally.
And I know there's a bunch of Ronda haters that'll be like, oh, she's just trying to clout chase of Liv's popularity and stuff. I'm sorry. You have two options here. That WWE, after 7 or 8 years of booking Liv Morgan like the perennial loser, finally decided, you know what, we're going to give Liv that opportunity she's always wanted. Or somebody that they would listen to said that they wanted to put the title on Liv Morgan. Yeah. I believe the latter, and the latter sounds much more realistic than the former. So, yes, be worried. I think the only way Liv Morgan walks out of SummerSlam with the SmackDown Women's Championship is if Charlotte Flair costs Ronda Rousey the title. And even that ain't that good for Liv Morgan's reign, that one of her wins was something that they're totally washing over and saying that she got lucky and it was only due to other people that beat up Ronda Rousey before she got the win. And then her next win over Ronda Rousey, even though it's 2 wins over Ronda Rousey, and that's something to hang your hat on, the next win is going to be because Charlotte Flair really beat Ronda Rousey. It doesn't do that much to establish Liv Morgan as a main eventer in this women's scene.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't take a whole lot of dot connecting to point to what the WWE's real priority here is. It's protecting Ronda Rousey. Like, that's WWE's priority here. So yes, I don't expect Liv Morgan to beat Ronda Rousey clean in the middle of the ring. Has Ronda Rousey lost a match clean yet? Even going back to WrestleMania 35, didn't lose there. There were some hijinks in her match with Charlotte. She didn't really lose there, even though she ate the big boot. And then
that's the closest thing to a clean loss that she's had. And she made Charlotte tap in that matchup with the referee down. And
exactly.
Referee bump. So yeah, she's never lost clean.
She's never really lost. She's lost matches, but she's never really lost. So do I expect the WWE is going to give that first clean, legit loss to Liv Morgan? I do not, because her name's not Charlotte Flair. Her name's not Becky Lynch. Her name's not Bayley. I'd say Sasha Banks, but we all know where that's at, and we'll get to that coming up here soon. It's not anybody in that upper echelon there, and they do have a chance. They have an opportunity to make Liv Morgan. They gave her the moment. That's what WWE is so great at, right? They make those moments. They gave Nikki a moment. They gave Big E a moment. We all saw how those ended, right? Like, they gave Kofi a great moment. Gave him actually a long run. We saw how that ended. All right? Gave Rey Mysterio a moment. We all saw how that ended afterwards.
Bray Wyatt got a moment. I'll see how that's happened.
Yes, exactly. So, I'm extremely worried. This title run should be beating Ronda Rousey, should be beating her white whale, right? Like, okay, she beats Ronda. Where does she go from here? Her white whale is Charlotte. That should be her next big feud after SummerSlam. We don't need to go back and revisit Charlotte and Ronda again. We just don't. We don't need to. Absolutely not. Don't need it. As a matter of fact, I would love to see, because if Ronda's not in the main title picture, I'd love to see her and Shayna Baszler kind of team up and kind of put the fuel back into that women's tag team division, if that's something that WWE actually has any plans of doing anytime soon. But there are other things you can do with Ronda Rousey. Liv Morgan and Charlotte, that should be her next big feud. Then she finally beats Charlotte, and then we can move on to the next big heel in WWE on the SmackDown division that solidified herself as a heel this past week on Friday, and that would be Lacey Evans. There's been a lot of, is she a babyface? Is she a heel? Is she on SmackDown? Is she on Raw? There's been a lot of reports about what the hell they're doing with her, and frankly, a lot of her return got botched, but there was extenuating circumstances surrounding that because a lot of things changed with Lacey Evans due to what was going on behind the scenes with Sasha Banks and Naomi. But to me, this was absolutely the right call to turn Lacey Evans heel here on Friday. The crowds were not reacting to Lacey the way they thought they would. Yes, she has an inspirational story. Yes, she can connect with the audience on a level there. And I did see some people complaining that they didn't even give her time to get over. I actually commend WWE for calling an immediate about face here instead of just pushing a rock up a steep hill, because they've done this already with Becky Lynch. They gave Becky Lynch time to get her heel heat. I don't think getting people to boo you, I honestly think is easier than getting people to like you. And nobody likes Lacey Evans. I'm sorry. They just don't. Even if she does have a great and inspirational story. And yes, I agree with all that. And I loved her idea. I got to talk to her about her idea about trying to put this out on television. Fans weren't reacting. Heel Lacey Evans is what's best for business at this point. It's the only way that she's going to excel. And the fact that she gets a reaction is good enough. She gets a bigger reaction than Natalya does. She gets a bigger reaction than Shayna Baszler does. She gets a bigger reaction than Raquel Rodriguez does at this point. She gets a bigger reaction than Xia Li. She gets a bigger reaction than most of the women on the SmackDown roster. So she should continue to be heavily featured. She definitely needed to be a heel. And if she's the one that beats Liv Morgan for the SmackDown Women's Championship, say somewhere around Survivor Series, somewhere around TLC, somewhere around day one, I think that's a great first run for Liv Morgan, and I think it's a good decision to pull the trigger and finally give Lacey her first run of the title at that point. Yes, this was the right call. What say you, SP3?
This is 100% the right call, because this is a better heel character than her original heel character. The sassy Southern Belle had a shelf life. It was basically a comedy gimmick that you really couldn't take her seriously when she was up against the Becky Lynches of the world, or she was up against Charlotte Flair. It was like she needed something to help her because of that gimmick. But with this gimmick, she has every right to be mad at the fans. Yeah, she She poured her heart out and gave these emotional stories. The issue why she didn't get over as a babyface is because this should have been 3 weeks long. It should have been 3 weeks of this emotional story, better paced out to don't tell us that basically the same story 3 weeks in a row, and it became, I think it was at 5 weeks by the time we finally saw her in front of the fans, but it was like
and then they moved her to Raw, and then she cut another one.
It was like 5 weeks of the same story over and over and over again, and it got to the point that it annoyed people. Like, it was like, no, I don't want to like her. You're forcing it now. So they didn't do that properly at all. But this whole heel character feels like more of a main event type of heel because she has a legitimate reason to have that gripe with the fans. She poured her heart out. She had an inspirational story. She's a former Marine. She's a mother. Yet these people despise her for just, I don't even know why they don't like. Just existing. So this is the type of heel character that always works. The heel character that is making a great point. That always works, and this is gonna work.
This is gonna work, hands down, no question whatsoever. And again, a lot of the botching around. I saw somebody say that Lacey Evans is the new Big Show, and I'm sitting here, I'm going, no, she's not, because if you actually look at what she's done on screen, it's all been a very linear move straight to this. It's all led to this. It's the back and forth that happened behind the scenes that threw everybody off. All the people who read the comments of, oh, well, she's been moved to Raw and now she's listed as a heel. Oh, well, now they flipped her heel. And then it's like, oh, well, now she's back on SmackDown and she's doing her whole babyface routine. It's like, well, don't confuse backstage reporting with what we've actually seen on television. If you go back and you watch Lacey's entire run, even though she was briefly moved to Raw, it's all been leading to this. This has been a straight move. Don't let behind the scenes stuff make you think that things have been different on TV. You got to separate the two. And again, the behind the scenes stuff, a lot of her changes were due to Sasha Banks and Naomi and everything that has been going on there. Internet lost its damn mind this week, SP3, when the report came out that Sasha Banks and Naomi had been removed from the internal roster sheet. They've also changed their bios on social media to say professional wrestler and not WWE. Naomi putting out some stuff about knowing your worth and fighting back and this, that, and the other thing out on social media this week. What, if anything, do you take away from the latest news with Sasha Banks and Naomi and the fact that they've been dropped from the internal rosters, but they are still listed as active competitors on the main website?
It just tells me the lack of communication within WWE. Honestly, that's what it tells me, because it's quite obvious that from what Naomi, because Naomi is the key here. I think everybody has always positioned this as a Sasha Banks move, that Naomi was just loyal to her sister and just, following her lead, and Naomi would be back, but Sasha wouldn't. Naomi's Instagram and Twitter and social media, output content tells me that it's about her as well. So it tells me that they might be done for the time being. I'm not saying that Naomi won't be back, or even Sasha Banks, there's a possibility of her being back, but it tells me that they are done. They are not in WWE currently. It's just WWE has a total lack of communication, and they're trying to save face in the public eye due to what's going on with Vince McMahon, and they don't want to put this information out and confirm what everybody else seems to know.
Yeah, whether or not they are still contracted, whether or not they are still employed with WWE is irrelevant at this point. And this is why I'm not taking away anything, because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed from the latest. Oh, they've been removed from the internal roster sheet. I don't know what that internal roster sheet means. Does it mean people who are employed with the company or people who are still active competitors? Because if that's the case, Cody Rhodes wouldn't be on the internal roster at this point because he's not cleared to compete. I don't know how any of that works, so I'm not taking anything away from this. The fact of the matter is they ain't on TV, and nobody's been able to confirm whether or not they have officially been released. I know there are the reports from Raj Giri that says, yes, she has been released, but we've got other people who are sitting here saying, oh, her lawyers are working on it. And then we got other reports saying WWE is trying to smooth things over with Sasha Banks. Nothing has changed here. And until I hear a definitive answer, one way or the other, WWE sending out a tweet wishing Sasha Banks and Naomi the best in their future endeavors, or they come out.
Don't do that anymore.
When was the last? They did it for Bray Wyatt, right? He was the last one.
That was the last one.
That was the last one.
That's nearly a year ago now.
Right.
And they've released a lot of people since then.
I understand that. But until we get it definitive one way or the other, nothing has changed for me. This is status quo. I'm taking literally nothing away from this. They ain't coming back anytime soon. I've been of that opinion for a very, very long time, and I'm not going to freak out over internal roster sheets. I'm not going to freak out over Instagram posts. Obviously, there's still beef there. It's only been a few weeks, guys. It may feel like 10 years at this point, but it's only been a few weeks. They ain't coming back for SummerSlam if they were coming back. It ain't going to be till next year at the earliest that we see either one of them, unless, of course, something definitive happens and, Mercedes shows up on AEW TV in like 90 days or some crap like that. Okay, so I'm watching SmackDown on Friday, and we had two different tag team matches there, SP3, two different tag team matches, heel versus heel tag team matches, right? I'm going, this is weird. Why are we doing two heel versus heel matches on SmackDown? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then I started digging, and I started doing some looking, and I realized something, SP3. Do you realize in all of WWE right now that RK Bro and is split due to Randy's injury, there are two babyface tag teams in all of WWE. It is the Profits, it is the New Day, and that is it. And the New Day is currently busy getting their asses handed to them by the new, vicious Viking Raiders. Very important to say that they're both new and vicious, and to make sure you say that every single time you bring up the fact that they are the new vicious Viking Raiders. But still, you have basically one babyface tag team, and they are getting another shot at the tag team titles at SummerSlam. Looking at the evidence around it, I know a lot of people want Montez Ford to get his big singles push, and they might be building him for this big singles push. If given the choice, SP3, are you breaking up the Street Profits, or are you having them win the tag team titles at SummerSlam? Because I'm looking at the entire landscape of the tag team division, and I'm going, they need the Street Profits right now. They absolutely 100% need the Street Profits. And I think I would pull the trigger on here. You got to start the downward descent of the bloodline sooner rather than later. Have the Street Profits win the damn tag team titles at SummerSlam, because it makes more sense to have those belts on a babyface team right now with all these other heel tag teams than to have the Street Profits lose again definitively this time and then begin the dissension of the Street Profits and have them split up. If your division doesn't have the Street Profits, it's in trouble. It is massively in trouble. Right now, things are cool. Things are fine. Usos and Profits are cooking. That match, I don't care what Dave Meltzer says, was a five-star classic at the last pay-per-view. I will say it. I don't rate matches. It was 5-star. To me, I don't give a damn what you say. Yes, it was.
It wasn't. No, you can't have that type of finish, and it wasn't. And the first half of the matchup was nothing. It was good the first half. It wasn't. I think that people that want to say, "Oh no, it's 5 stars," you're overrating the last 10 minutes of the match and ignoring the first 10 minutes of it. That's basically what you're doing. But it was a great match, nonetheless. It was a top 5 match in WWE. It's not better than Cody versus Seth, so I don't think it's 5 stars, because that's the best match that WWE's put on all year, and it was better. It wasn't on that level, and it wasn't better. But as far as the question, as far as the Street Profits, I think the only reason to make this match at SummerSlam is because they're going to win the tag team titles. I don't think you run it back after Money in the Bank, because it exceeded all expectations for a matchup that we've seen various different times, and it was so great that people, like yourself, are overrating it. But for people like me that just rate it as it was a great match and the best tag team match WWE has put on, I would say, since the Usos versus New Day series back in 2017. So I think they can give us another great matchup at SummerSlam, and yes, the Street Profits should win.
A lot of focus in WWE here as we wrap up the 5 count on Mr. Austin Theory, Mr. Money in the Bank. He did show up on Friday. didn't really tease a cash in. I know everybody's sitting here saying, "Oh, he was teased." No, he was just basically letting Roman Reigns know, "Hey, I'm here. I'm around the corner." Roman Reigns did a fantastic job, in my opinion, of just basically shooing this man away. Just his facial reactions were like, "Bitch, get out of here. You ain't on my level. You ain't even a threat. Just walk away." So we know what Roman Reigns, at least kayfabe speaking, thinks of Austin Theory. I will ask you this, SP3. Do you think he is a legitimate threat to end Roman Reigns' reign as WWE Universal Champion?
No. No. I got to shout out one of my good friends, one of my colleagues over at Wrestle Talk. They just did a video. My good friend Pete Quinnell just did a video on Roman Reigns of why Roman Reigns is not working. And the best point that he put across during that is that sometime in the 600-day reign, when it was going very well, the question was, who is going to dethrone Roman Reigns? And we talked about it when it was going well, or when it started to go downhill after WrestleMania. We were talking about guys like Cody Rhodes, Braun Breaker, Gable Stevenson, an outside shot like him. But in the past 3 months since WrestleMania, the question has turned to when Roman Reigns is going to lose the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, and that's a problem. That's a problem because it was who, which is excitement on who can be the next champion, to when is this going to be over? Because I'm over it. Like, that's an issue. And Austin Theory ain't it. And I don't think that that's the right decision to end Roman Reigns' reign.
Yeah. The key wording in this question is Roman himself. I don't see Austin Theory cashing in on Roman Reigns. I don't think Austin Theory is going to cash in unless WWE is going to do my idea, which they never do, which is for, whether it's at Survivor Series or Day One or one of the big pay-per-views down the line, is where you finally get to the point where it's Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, that match that a lot of people want and want to see this feud revisited. And Austin Theory decides to cash in on that match to try to pull off a Seth Rollins move, and Rollins ends up beating Theory to win the championship. Unless that's what you decide to do with Money in the Bank, to keep Roman unpinned if he's going to have this match with The Rock at WrestleMania and get the belt off of him, unless you're going to do that, I don't see Theory cashing in on until it's like the next champion. Like, if Cody Rhodes wins the WWE title at WrestleMania, I could see them immediately sending in Austin Theory to cash in and take that belt away from him for the sweet, sweet, sweet heat that they would get on that point. And you got to give Theory credit. People love to hate this guy. It's the same way with Lacey Evans. People love to despise this guy, and he does get reactions. And there are people who are genuinely pissed off that he's Mr. Money in the Bank right now. But no, it makes no sense. Why would you cash in? Why would you have, from just a logistical standpoint, why would you have Austin Theory cash in on Roman Reigns? Unless Brock beats Roman for the title at Survivor Series or SummerSlam. Unless Brock is the guy that finally beats Roman, which makes no damn sense. And it shouldn't be Brock Lesnar that beats Roman Reigns, but they'll probably give it to Brock. Unless babyface Cowboy Brock cashes in or beats Roman, and then Theory cashes in on Brock Lesnar. I'm not saying he would lose, or I'm not saying he would win or lose. I honestly could see him going either way. But remember, it was Brock that squashed Austin Theory at Madison Square Garden. So, and he's already kind of brought that up on television at this point, I do believe. Either that or it was a digital exclusive that he owed it to get Brock back for what he did to him, alluding to that squash at Madison Square Garden. So, again, they're using Austin Theory here as a way to kind of build some more intrigue around this match at SummerSlam, but I don't think it's going to work, honestly, necessary. Now, if Sami Zayn or Seth Rollins had the briefcase, I think there'd be more intrigue, at least on the fan base perspective of things. But no, there's no way in hell that Austin Theory is going to end Roman Reigns' WWE Universal Championship run. Probably Cody Rhodes, or maybe Seth Rollins, or whichever babyface ultimately does beat Roman Reigns. But again, that's a great point, SP3. It is a long time now. It has stopped being who and when, turning it to when. That is such a good point. And yeah, I think a lot of people are there. It's a burnout factor. When SummerSlam rolls around, It had been 2 years Roman Reigns has held his belt. That's a great run. I get it. It's huge. It's finally making Roman Reigns, who had a lot of Rock-type reigns, to be honest. Short, 30 days, 60 days. I think he was finally going to get like a long run, and then he got, the performance pop, and had to be suspended. So he's had his time. He's still
he was gonna have a long reign, and then he had the bout with leukemia.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah, that's right too. Yeah, so he had an opportunity to get 2 long runs, and then different circumstances popped up in each situation. But yeah, I think a lot of people are saying, when is this going to be over? We're ready to see something else at this point. I don't know if people are quite ready for Austin Theory to be that next thing. Whether, again, he ain't beating Roman Reigns. It's not happening. I don't have a hat on today. I will eat my hat. I will eat a hat if Austin Theory is the one to finally pin Roman Reigns' shoulders to the ground for the first time since December of 2019. We do thank you guys for listening to all 50 minutes of this half-hour podcast or watching here on the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe wherever it is that you guys are watching and enjoying Bleav in Pro Wrestling. We appreciate you guys so much. Again, stick tuned to the channel this week. Gonna have Athena dropping this week. Gonna have Renee Paquette dropping next week. I got some more interviews up my sleeves. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna be at SummerSlam. So there's going to be a lot of more good content coming out on this channel as we approach SummerSlam and after SummerSlam. How many times can I say SummerSlam? I don't know. We'll see. We will be back tomorrow, live stream, 2:15 in the afternoon. Let's go. Talking about Monday Night Raw, a now Liv Morgan-less Monday Night Raw. And now the question is, what do they do with Bianca Belair? Because I don't know if Rhea Ripley is going to be ready by SummerSlam. So I wonder, I really wonder what they could be doing for Bianca Belair at SummerSlam. It is quite the mystery. We'll see how things shake out on Monday Night Raw. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. SP3 and I'll be back on Tuesday, 2:15 live here on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much. This has been the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast brought to you by Bet